In the heart of the 1930s, tucked away within the shadows of Cleveland, Ohio, a dark narrative was taking shape. Imagine this: a city previously thriving, reaping the spoils of prosperity during the Roaring Twenties, suddenly plummeted into the harsh reality of the Great Depression. The year was 1935, and Cleveland was wrestling with the grip of economic downturn. The thriving metropolis stood in stark contrast to the poverty-stricken neighborhood of Kingsbury Run, a perilous slum known as the Hobo Jungle, or the Roaring Third. Here, society's outcasts sought shelter from life's unforgiving realities, unaware that they were stepping onto the stage of a horrifying spectacle. Enter the antagonist, an unidentified figure soon to be infamous as the Cleveland Torso Murderer. This malevolent entity was not satisfied with merely surviving on society's fringe. Rather, he aimed to etch his mark in the most horrific manner conceivable. The first dreadful signs of his presence surfaced in September of the same year, when the unthinkable began to take place. As the killings escalated, the city saw the emergence of Elliot Ness, a fearless lawman challenged with the daunting task of putting an end to the bloodshed. And so, the stage was set for one of America's most notorious unsolved crimes. As the city grappled with its economic upheaval, the emergence of a more tangible terror was about to be witnessed. Amidst the throes of the Great Depression, the once prosperous hub of Cleveland was sent into shock by a series of horrifying killings. The city's residents, already struggling with the economic decline, found themselves thrust into a chilling wave of terror. With the unearthing of each victim more terrifying than the previous, the community was sent spiraling into fear. The sheer savagery of the crimes was a dark testament to the murderers evident of human anatomy. The 12 victims were discovered in the deprived neighborhood of Kingsbury Run, a locale infamous for sheltering vagrants and the penniless. The murderer, later christened the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, demonstrated a terrifying ability to pick victims who would be difficult to identify. A wicked twist that only heightened the escalating fear. The victims were not simply killed, they were mutilated, dismembered, and beheaded. It was a sight akin to a horror film, but for the citizens of Cleveland it was a nightmarish reality. The murderer's evident knowledge of human anatomy was as perplexing as it was horrifying. Who was this individual who could dismember a human body with such precision, and yet exhibit such barbarous disregard for life? As the death toll rose, the city was consumed by paranoia. The dread was palpable. Everyone could be the next victim. The pressure on the authorities to apprehend the murderer and put an end to the gruesome reign of terror was immense. Yet, the horrific discoveries did not cease. The murderer continued to mock the city, leaving a trail of bodies as if deriding the impotent efforts of law enforcement. Each new victim served as a grim reminder of the butcher's continued liberty and the city's persistent fear. The city was held captive by fear, but the worst was still on the horizon. Enter Elliot Ness, the lawman saddled with the daunting task of pursuing this evasive butcher. A name firmly ingrained in the archives of law enforcement due to his legendary exploits against Chicago's organized crime. However, his most cryptic adversary surfaced in Cleveland, Ohio. Holding the position of Cleveland's safety director, Ness found himself faced with a case that would send shivers down the spine of even the steeliest detective. The infamous Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, a notorious and enigmatic killer, had left a gruesome trail of at least 12 victims in the disadvantaged neighborhood. The scale of the investigation Ness led, with unprecedented raids and drastic measures, was unmatched in history. He was unyielding in his pursuit, organizing raids and gathering fingerprints from the city's homeless in hopes of finding a match among the victims. In a desperate bid to interrupt the killer's operation and prevent further bloodshed, he commanded the burning of makeshift settlements. With the media broadcasting every grisly detail and investigative twist, the public's morbid fascination was constantly fueled. Yet, for all the media glare, the case remained as murky as the infamous Cuyahoga River. Despite the extensive resources allocated to the investigation and Ness's determination, the Mad Butcher remained elusive. This notorious killer, a shadowy figure, slipped away, transforming the case into one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Despite Ness's relentless pursuit, the murderer remained a phantom. As the city held its breath, the whirlwind investigation brought forth a host of suspects and theories. The spotlight fell on Frank Dolezal, a bricklayer who suddenly found himself the prime suspect in this spine-chilling mystery. Dolezal stepped forward, confessing to the murder of one victim, Florence Polillo. Despite his confession, its validity was thrown into question as significant inconsistencies plagued his narrative. The case took an unexpected, horrifying turn when a theory surfaced. It was suggested that the real murderer possessed an in-depth understanding of human anatomy. The precision observed in the body dismemberments pointed to a level of proficiency that sent shivers down the spine. This threw up frightening possibilities. Was the Cleveland torso murderer a professional butcher, or perhaps an unchecked surgeon? Despite this chilling theory and a multitude of suspects, the actual identity of the Cleveland torso murderer remained a vexing mystery. The investigation turned into a bewildering maze of blind alleys and unaddressed queries. Yet every promising lead seemed to melt into the shadows, only leaving behind a trail of persistent questions. As time soldiered on, the eerie ghost of the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, perpetually in the American crime history annals, the harrowing tale of the Mad Butcher is distinct, casting a bleak, dense shadow over Cleveland City. This spine-chilling narrative transcends the realm of mere macabre storytelling. It's a pivotal moment in Cleveland's timeline, an event that still grips and terrifies people even today. Amid the throes of the Great Depression, as Cleveland wrestled with its deep-seated economic woes, the reign of terror unleashed by the Mad Butcher sent waves of fear through its citizens' hearts. The savage killings and the consequent unwavering investigations reshaped the city, leaving an everlasting impact on its narrative. The case drew such widespread media focus that it rose to infamy as one of the most notorious unsolved crimes in American history, a conundrum that continues to puzzle detectives and crime enthusiasts alike. As the city progressed, the memory of the Mad Butcher remained a haunting presence. Kingsbury Run, the impoverished neighborhood where the dismembered bodies were discovered, turned into a somber emblem of the city's history. The investigations, spearheaded by the legendary law enforcement officer Elliot Ness, became city folklore, a testament to the unyielding pursuit of justice. The case's enduring allure partly stems from its unresolved status, sparking numerous theories, inspiring books, and forming the basis of numerous documentaries, each endeavoring to decode the enigma that's the Mad Butcher. Persisting mystery of the Mad Butcher's identity and the motives behind his or her actions continues to engross and baffle. The case remains a stark testament to the limitations of forensic technology of the era, a period when even the most persistent investigations could reach. But the legacy of the Mad Butcher extends beyond being a simple tale of a serial killer. It's a narrative of a city's battle, its stand against fear, and its tireless quest for justice. It's a story that manages to grip, to terrorize, and to inspire. Thus, the story of the Cleveland torso murderer lingers, a chilling reminder of a mystery that may never find a resolution.
Tranquil Bavarian homestead of Hinterkaifeck, something was unsettling. A hushed winter had taken hold of the region, carrying an unsettling atmosphere with it. The Gruber family, living in the privacy of their farm, started to discern unusual events that would unnerve even the most courageous. Every night, their home's stillness was interrupted by peculiar sounds echoing from the attic, like murmurs traveling on the breeze. But upon examination, they found nothing but the bare shadows of their dwelling. Then came the footprints. Not your regular footprints, mind you. These were enigmatic ones, creating a path from the thick woods to their farm. Yet, curiously, none led back, as though someone or something had farm and never departed. The last straw was the vanishing of the house keys. They simply disappeared, much like the footprints in the snow. The Grubers, once content in their secluded life, now found themselves ensnared in a frightening suspense. Their residence morphed into a creepy platform for the unexplainable. As the discomfort escalated, so did the strain. Yet they remained unaware that these were not mere random happenings. They were ominous signs of a horrifying event about to transpire. March 31st, 1922, a date that would inscribe Hinterkaifeck into the chronicles of criminal history. On this day, nestled in the peaceful Bavarian countryside, a sinister force descended upon the Hinterkaifeck estate. Oblivious to the approaching danger, the Gruber family and their maid were on the verge of ghastly and unknown assailant, armed only with a crude mattock, initiated a brutal killing spree. The estate's inhabitants were mercilessly slaughtered one by one, their lives extinguished in a frightening spectacle of violence. The culprit did not flee the scene. Instead, in a bone-chilling turn of events, the murderer found refuge within the blood-soaked confines of the Gruber estate. In the following days, the killer took on the guise of a farmer. He tended to the livestock, consumed the family's food, and lived alongside the lifeless bodies of his victims. It was akin to a macabre performance, the grisly tableau of the Hinterkaifeck farm serving as his stage. This shocking circumstance paints a picture of a killer who derives satisfaction not just from taking lives, but also from violating the sanctity of home and hearth. It poses a chilling question. What kind of person could commit such atrocities, and then carry on as if life were merely ordinary? This inquiry continues. Investigators and the once serene rural estate had morphed into a house of horrors. Yet for 4 days, the world beyond remained oblivious to the sinister spectacle hidden within. The unsuspecting visitors who arrived on the 4th day found not the Grubers' welcoming faces, but the disclosure of the terrifying massacre came only 4. The shocking revelation sparked a baffling and eerie investigation. Picture yourself as a detective in the 1920s, coping with a case that feels as though it leapt from the pages of a horror. The savage crime scene is an isolated Bavarian homestead. The victims are 6 inhabitants who suffered a horrific demise. The instruments are a mattock, tool closely resembling a pickaxe. The chilling detail in this horrific scenario? The culprit seemingly decided to amongst the lifeless bodies for 3 days. A new spin on the phrase uninvited guest, wouldn't you say? Investigators were confused right from the start. The extreme savagery of the crime was undeniably, but the of any clear motive was truly puzzling. Theft was dismissed early on. The family's money remained untouched. And other than the lives tragically ended, nothing seemed to be absent. So, for wealth, what could drive someone to carry out such a monstrous act? Adding to the investigators' perplexity was the peculiar behavior of the perpetrator. After executing the murders, they didn't make a hasty. On the contrary, lingered, consumed the family's food, and even cared for the animals. It was as if they'd simply relocated and settled. Chilling, isn't it? Now, the farm's isolation posed further challenges for the investigation. There were hardly any neighbors to question, and even fewer potential witnesses, and it was akin to searching for most. Despite the authorities' best efforts, the case was as clear as a misty. The subsequent investigations raised more questions than they answered. The endless series of peculiar incidents and sightings only intensified the burning mystery. It appeared the farmstead itself was a hub for the uncanny. Odd footprints in the snow, unexplainable noises resonating from the attic, and the spine-chilling fact that the culprit had stayed with the victims' bodies 3 whole days. This was no spur-of-the-moment crime, but one premeditation. As time passed, rumors and theories began to circulate in Bavaria. Some suggested a disgruntled neighbor. Others suspected the enigmatic maid had started working at the farmstead just days before the crime. Talk of supernatural forces even arose. Theories multiplied as the investigations deepened. A variety of suspects, locals holding grudges to roaming vagabonds. Efforts. The case an unsolved puzzle with missing pieces. The further they delved into this tangled mystery, the more complex it became. Without or definitive evidence, the motive remained as elusive killer. Could it have been a crime of passion, botched robbery, or something even more sinister? Over time, the unresolved case of the Hinterkaifeck murders gained the attention of true crime enthusiasts and amateur detectives alike. The cryptic clues, perplexing evidence, and the killer, all shrouded in a mystery that was as captivating as it was frightening. However, with each year, the truth seemed to recede further away. The final interrogations occurred in the mid-80s, and the trail went cold. The case once sent through the quiet Bavarian countryside was now but a fading echo. As the years transformed into decades, the Hinterkaifeck murders remained an alluring riddle. The myriad theories, the relentless investigations, and over a century passing, the chilling mystery of Hinterkaifeck continues to confound and fascinate, its secrets hidden within the silent walls of the old farmstead. Today, almost 100 years later, the Hinterkaifeck homestead is merely a memory, yet the unresolved crime continues to fascinate. The echoes of the past still resonate within the heart of Bavaria, where the Gruber family once lived a life that ended in tragedy. Their story, marked by mystery and horror, has become part of local folklore. The Hinterkaifeck murders are among Germany's most infamous unsolved crimes, a horrifying scene of brutality and fear, intriguing generations and baffling investigators. The gruesome events of that fateful March night in 1922 have left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness, casting a long, haunting shadow over the annals of true crime. Despite decades of relentless investigation, definitive evidence, clear motive, or a confession remain elusive. The identity of the perpetrator or perpetrators remains hidden in the shadows. Theories abound, suspects have come and gone, but the truth of what happened at Hinterkaifeck remains out of reach. Serves as a chilling reminder that some enigmas may forever remain hidden in the shadows. Dive into the chilling narrative of the Alphabet Murders, a series of unresolved child homicides that rattled the city of Rochester, New York, from 1971 to 1973. In the early 70s, the tranquility of Rochester was shattered by these horrifying acts of violence that would later be known as the Alphabet, or double initial murders. No random acts of violence, but a heinous series of murders that followed a sinister pattern. Victims were young girls, 10 or 11 years old. Their age wasn't the only connection. Each of these girls had alliterative names, a terrifying coincidence, or a deliberate selection by the murderer. The first victim, Carmen Colon, vanished in 1971. Her lifeless body was found 2 days later. Wanda Walkowicz and Michelle Mainza met the same fate in 1973. The murderer's fixation with alphabets extended further. Each victim was found near a town sharing the same initial as their names. Carmen in Churchville, Wanda in Webster, and Michelle in Macedon. This was a morbid signature of a murderer who remained at large. The city's law enforcement poured substantial resources into the investigations, following leads, scrutinizing evidence, and interrogating suspects. Yet, the criminal always managed to evade capture. Despite their relentless efforts, the identity of the murderer remained as vague as a wisp in the night. The Alphabet Murders persist as a haunting enigma that continues to grip Rochester. The murderer remains a specter, his identity as elusive as a wisp in the night. Step back in time to the mysterious disappearance of the first victim, Carmen Colon, in 1971, closely followed by the misfortunes of Wanda Walkowicz and Michelle Mainza in 1973. We commence our tale in the chilly November of 1971. Carmen Colon, an energetic 10-year-old, disappeared without any trace. Her last sighting was on a teeming city street in Rochester, New York. The city held its breath, praying fervently for Carmen's safe return. But the harsh reality dawned 2 days later. Carmen's lifeless body was found, violated and strangled, discarded near a town that eerily shared the same as hers. But the nightmare didn't cease there. Zoomed to 1973, and a new name was etched on the killer's ghastly list. Wanda Walkowicz, a mere 11-year-old, vanished. The city was on high alert, the tragic memory of Carmen's fate still resounding in everyone's minds. A day later, Wanda was discovered, her life snuffed out in the same brutal fashion as Carmen's. The uncanny similarities between the two cases sent shivers down the city's spine. The monster had struck once more, and a horrifying pattern was becoming apparent. Later that year, Michelle Mainza, another 11-year-old, disappeared. Despite the city's heightened alertness, the Alphabet killer succeeded in claiming a third victim. Michelle's body was discovered shortly after. Another life ended prematurely. Another name etched on the dreadful. With each chilling incident, the city's protectors sprang into action. They sifted through leads, grilled suspects, and labored to piece together the frightening puzzle. The city was in the throes of fear, but the authorities were determined to nab the fiend. Despite their relentless endeavors, the Alphabet killer remained elusive. The inquiries were exhaustive, but no arrests were made. The killer left no tangible evidence, no evident leads, just a chilling pattern that sent the city's blood curdling. With each murder, the city's terror heightened. But the Alphabet killer always managed to stay a step ahead, leaving behind nothing but a trail of despair and terror. Years have rolled by since the Alphabet murders cast a shadow over Rochester, yet the enigma persists. We dig further into the enduring enigma of the Alphabet murders. It's clear that the unyielding quest for closure carries on. In spite of more than 50 years passing, the case isn't anywhere near being forgotten. The homicide of these innocent lives made a deep-seated impact on the city, prodding investigators to unceasingly seek justice for Carmen Colon, Wanda Walkowicz, and Michelle Mainza. One of the significant aspects in these relentless efforts is the re-evaluation of DNA evidence. Owing to advancements in technology, what was once a hindrance might now be a potential breakthrough. With forefront techniques, DNA samples found at the crime scenes are being reassessed, offering a ray of hope that the identity of the murderer may finally be disclosed. However, the journey to unveiling the truth is packed with its twists and intricacies. A prime suspect who has served over 30 years in prison was recently freed, introducing another layer of complexity to the case. Talked about in a book about the murders, this person maintained correspondence with the author, yet the case couldn't be conclusively linked to him. And then there are the conjectures, some conceivable, others less so. Some think that all three murders are the act of a single individual, while others propose that they are merely coincidental, the work of different murderers. One true crime writer even puts forth that the double initials are a chance occurrence, a tragic coincidence rather than a deliberate pattern. A retired police officer, in contrast, has cast his suspicions on a different individual, suggesting that he could be the probable killer of two of the victims. And then there's the bone-chilling possibility of a copycat criminal, a hypothesis that injects an additional layer of intrigue to the already intricate case. As the Alphabet Murders case continues to perplex investigators, the city of Rochester remembers the victims and yearns for closure. A final chapter in this grim narrative. The Alphabet Murders, a chilling saga of unresolved crimes, continue to reverberate in the silence, a haunting reminder of the past. Between 1971 and 73, these horrific acts of violence unfolded, involving three young girls, each bearing the uncanny alliterative names. The victims, all aged 10 or 11, were discovered near towns that eerily shared the same initial as their names, adding an unnerving layer to these already traumatizing events. The city of Rochester, the scene of these crimes, is marked by this chilling legacy. The Alphabet Murders have etched a dark chapter in its history, leaving an indelible impact on the community. This enduring enigma has not only unsettled the city, but also sparked intrigue within the true crime community, fueling decades of speculation, theories, and investigations. Despite the passage of over 50 years, the Alphabet Murders continue to baffle and fascinate, their resonance serving as an eerie reminder of the past. As time marches on, the Alphabet Murders remain one of the most puzzling, unsolved mysteries of our era, a somber tribute to the victims and a relentless quest for justice.
In the pulsating heart of Glasgow, Scotland, a sinister spectre lay in wait, primed to pounce without warning. Hidden in plain sight, this malevolent presence donned the guise of the everyday man, effortlessly merging with the bustling urban life. His chosen lair, the infamous Barrowland Ballroom. Celebrated for its unique dance and electrifying atmosphere, the Ball Roland was the hub of Glasgow's nightlife. A beacon for the working-class thrill-seekers desiring an evening of joy, the ballroom was renowned for its lively over-25 nights, affectionately dubbed Grab-a-Granny Nights. Unbeknown to the merry crowd, their nights of innocent joy were on the brink of being tainted by a series of chilling murders. Among the crowd, Patricia Docker, a 25-year-old nurse with an affable smile and a passion for life, was a regular face. Known for her bubbly demeanor and contagious laughter, Patricia was a beloved figure at the Barrowland. On the evening of February 22, 1968, Patricia informed her family that she was heading to the majestic ballroom. The subsequent investigation, however, revealed that Patricia had spent her evening at the Barrowland Ballroom. As the night progressed, Patricia, like many others, was enraptured by the hypnotic rhythm of the dance floor. The ballroom resonated music and laughter, a heady mix of euphoria expectancy. The night was young, and the potential limitless. Yet as time went by, Patricia disappeared into the depths of the night. As the doors of the ballroom shut behind Patricia, she ventured into the brisk Glasgow night, oblivious to the impending peril. A hidden menace, clothed in an ordinary man's attire, on the hunt, his ominous intentions hidden beneath a facade of normality. Patricia Docker, a 25-year-old nurse, disappeared into the abyss, entirely unaware of the horror that lay ahead. The dawn of February 23, 1968, unveiled a bone-chilling revelation. A youthful nurse, Patricia Docker, was discovered lifeless, strangled with signs of blunt force trauma near her parents' abode. The details of her tragic end were appalling, exposing a clear sign of terror and pain that filled her last moments. Investigation into her case was instantly shrouded in a cloud of misdirection. Patricia had mentioned to her parents she was off to the majestic ballroom that night, a harmless deception which unfortunately obstructed the investigation. The authorities, led to believe she was at the Majestic, concentrated their initial efforts there, resulting in a delay in revealing her actual location. This meant valuable time was lost, time that could have been used to collect vital evidence and leads. Once the truth about Patricia's actual destination emerged, a link to the notorious Barrowland Ballroom began to take shape. This infamous location, known for its spirited entertainment and notorious reputation, particularly on Grab-a-Granny nights, was where Patricia had truthfully spent her last evening. Yet this enlightenment did not immediately lead detectives to draw a connection between her murder and the infamous venue. It wasn't until more lives were tragically cut short that this connection became indisputable. Patricia's case was filled with hurdles from the onset. The initial misdirection, the delay in the probe, and the lack of immediate connection to the Barrowland ballroom all contributed to the challenges investigators encountered. Despite their rigorous efforts, no substantial leads were unearthed, no suspects were pinned, and no closure was bestowed Patricia's bereaved family. The probe hit a wall, leaving Patricia's murder cloaked in enigma. As the first victim of the Bible John killings, Patricia Docker's story stands as a chilling testament to the stark reality of unsolved crimes. As Glasgow attempted to rebound from the shock, the hidden menace was gearing up to strike again. The city, still grappling with the loss of Patricia Docker, was about to be subjected to another wave of terror. Before long, another name would be etched into the bleak roster: Jemima MacDonald. Both Patricia and Jemima were young, vibrant women whose lives had been tragically cut short. Their shared connection to the Barrowland Ballroom, a popular locale amongst the working class known for its unique dance floor and lively atmosphere, was a chilling reminder of the danger lurking beneath the city's vibrant nightlife. The parallels between the two victims were unnerving. Young, brunette women who had been horrifically violated and strangled, their dreams and lives snuffed out too soon. The news of Jemima's demise sent a shudder through the city, the chilling realization setting in. Glasgow was under the spell of a serial murderer. The authorities, initially slow to connect the dots, now faced the daunting task of hunting down a menace hidden amongst them. Despite exhaustive investigations, the murderer remained elusive, blending into the crowd, ever ready to strike again. The tension in the city was almost palpable, fear and anxiety seeping into every corner. The city was by fear as the unidentified murderer roamed free. With a serial murderer on the prowl, the authorities found themselves locked in a desperate race against the clock. The streets of Glasgow had become a hunting ground, and within the shadows of the lively Barrowland ballroom lurked an enigmatic menace. The police, weaponizing their sharp intellect and unwavering resolve, embarked on an intense investigation and pursuit. The elusive murderer seemed to vanish into the night after each terrifying act, prompting the authorities to meticulously assemble the cryptic puzzle. Every lead was pursued, every scrap of evidence scrutinized. Not merely a manhunt, this was a hunt for a spectre, a phantom that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere all at once. A crucial turning point in the investigation was the development of composite sketches drawn from descriptions given by witnesses at the ballroom. These sketches portrayed a young man with a startling predilection for brutality. However, they remained just sketches, depictions of a face that seemed mutable, changing with each passing night. The surveillance networks in the ballroom and throughout the city were heightened, with the police hoping to identify the face that matched their sketches, to spot the man who had instilled such fear in their streets. Amidst a city of thousands, finding this man was akin to locating a needle in a massive haystack. The pressure to apprehend the murderer was insurmountable. As each day passed, the escalated, the dread amplified. The city was teetering on the brink, and the authorities were frantic in their attempts to restore tranquility to the perturbed community. A peculiar detail arose during the investigation, a detail that would christen the murderer with his notorious nickname. The man was reported to have recited biblical passages, paradoxically condemning the same act of adultery he himself was partaking in. This contradictory behavior led to the moniker that would reverberate through the ages, Bible John. Despite their relentless efforts, Bible John consistently seemed to outpace the law. The chase was in full force, yet the predator remained elusive, perpetually beyond their reach. The authorities were left wrestling with an enigma that seemed to deepen with every day, an enigma that would linger over the city of Glasgow for countless years. Years morphed into decades, but the spectre of Bible John continued to haunt Glasgow. In the latter part of the 60s, an unseen menace lurked within the Barrowland ballroom. 3 young women, Patricia Docker, Jemima MacDonald, and an unnamed third victim, all tragically met their demise. All brunettes in their mid-20s to early 30s, their lives were brutally ended in a series of terrifying murders that rocked the city of Glasgow. The investigation was elaborate and relentless, Each victim had been at the infamous Barrowland Ballroom on the night of their murder, a venue known for its lively entertainment and notorious grab-a-granny nights. It was here they likely crossed paths with their murderer, a man with deep knowledge of biblical scripture and a fervid loathing for infidelity. Composite sketches were drawn, intense surveillance was undertaken, and the city was engulfed in terror. Yet, the elusive Bible John managed to dodge the clutches of the law enforcement. A name, Peter Tobin, emerged from the whirlpool of conjecture. Tobin, a known serial killer, was thought to bear a striking semblance to the composite sketches of Bible John. However, after meticulous investigation, he was ruled out as a suspect, throwing the case back into the murky abyss of uncertainty. Numerous theories circulated, but none could definitively pinpoint the true identity of Bible John. Was he a local, well-versed with the terrain of Glasgow and its nightlife? Or was he an outsider, a fleeting figure who disappeared as swiftly as he appeared? Despite the relentless pursuit of investigators, the trail went cold. And the identity of Bible John remains as enigmatic as a wisp of smoke in a gust of Bible John. A name that instills terror in Glasgow remains an unresolved mystery, his identity shrouded in the mists of time.
Envision Austin, Texas in the year 1884. The night is shrouded in darkness, yet devoid of tranquility. An unseen dread prowls in the shadows. Austin during this time was a city in bloom with a tangible sense of aspiration. Yet as the city grew and thrived, a sinister menace emerged. The Servant Girl Annihilator, a tangible and horrifying entity, began to haunt the city's lanes under the veil of nightfall. This elusive foe was not a creature of folklore, but a horrifying and very real entity. The Servant Girl Annihilator was a silent phantom, striking under the cover of darkness, preying on unsuspecting men and women as they slept. His reign of terror lasted a year, where he took the lives of 8 unfortunate victims and caused numerous injuries to others. Austin City was ensnared in the frosty grip of terror as the body count escalated. Every creaking floorboard, every whispering wind became a potential indication of the unseen dread. The residents of Austin no longer felt secure in their own homes, which had been transformed into hunting grounds by this nocturnal threat. Despite the city's fear, life had to proceed. The sun would emerge each day, illuminating the gruesome scenes left behind by the Servant Girl Annihilator. The city would stir to the chilling reality of the night's horrors, a stark reminder of the unseen dread lurking amongst them. The Servant Girl Annihilator was more than a murderer. He was a ghost, a symbol of the fear of the unknown, a grim reminder of the darkness lurking in the human heart. His legacy is one of bloodshed and terror, a chilling episode in Austin's history that serves as a stark reminder of the city's darkest year. As the city slumbered, a malevolent force was at play, leaving a path of bloodshed and terror in its wake. The horror commenced on New Year's Eve, 1884, and intensified over the subsequent year. The initial casualty was a domestic girl, her existence extinguished in the midnight hour. With the inception of the new year, a reign of horror was initiated, projecting a lasting, eerie gloom over only a month later, in February. Another domestic girl was assaulted. She escaped death, but the city's apprehension swelled. March offered no relief, with 2 more victims being added to the dreadful count. The savagery of the crimes was escalating, the murderer growing increasingly audacious with each passing month. And then, a terrifying turn of events. In May, a male was the chosen target, his existence concluded as savagely as those before him. The city was in the grip of a dread that was as tangible as the Texas heat. No one was safe. The killer, whoever they were, made no distinctions, choosing victims without considering age, gender, or status. The summer brought no relief. 3 more murders, each escalating in horror. The killer was evolving, the violence amplifying. The city was on tenterhooks, the evenings filled with an almost palpable terror. And then, as abruptly as they had begun, the murders ceased. The final victim, a woman, was discovered in December of 1885. The horror that had enveloped Austin for a year had ended, but the dread lingered. Who was the killer? What were their motives? And why did they? With each heinous act, the city's dread amplified, as did the mystery surrounding the identity of the culprit. The Servant Girl Annihilator had receded back into obscurity, leaving behind a legacy of terror that would reverberate through the ages. Confronted with such atrocity, Austin rallied, initiating an unprecedented investigation. As the fatalities increased and the panic escalated, the community and law enforcement agencies amalgamated, united by a common dread and a collective resolve to expose the terror lurking among them. Austin transformed into fortress, its nights highlighted by the relentless efforts of the police force. The officers patrolled the streets, their gaze ever vigilant, their minds laden with the somber duty of apprehending a killer. They were the city's protectors, their heightened presence a stark reminder of the lurking peril. Simultaneously, the residents, no longer mere bystanders, turned into a legion of watchful guardians. They secured their homes, observed their streets, scrutinized their neighbors. Every unfamiliar face was a potential danger, every shadow a potential refuge for the elusive killer. They were not just victims anymore. They were active participants in the desperate race against time to cease the carnage. The investigation, despite the numerous obstacles, did produce leads. Two names surfaced from the obscurity, casting long shadows over the proceedings: James Phillips and Nathan Elgin. Their involvement in this spine-chilling tale is a saga in itself, a narrative spun with suspicion and intrigue. That, dear listeners, is a story for another time. Despite the relentless pursuit, the increased police presence, and the community vigilance, the murderer remained elusive. Austin, its residents, and its protectors were left battling a chilling enigma. The identity of the murderer, the specter who had unleashed a reign of terror upon them, remained concealed. No face to the fear, no name to the nightmare. But despite their best efforts, the identity of the killer remained shrouded in darkness. The Servant Girl Annihilator, as he came to be known, disappeared as abruptly as he had appeared, leaving behind a legacy of terror and a mystery that continues to perplex the annals of true crime. The Servant Girl Annihilator, the Austin Axe Murderer, the Midnight Assassin, numerous monikers for a single faceless figure of dread. Over a single year, from 1884 to 1885, this specter of horror carved a path of violence and mystery that has fascinated true crime aficionados for over a century. With 8 lives taken and many more marred, both physically and emotionally, the eeriness of these attacks is heightened by their non-discriminatory nature. They fell victim to this night hunter, an unusual occurrence in the annals of serial killing, while in their most vulnerable state, asleep in their beds. The ruthless and systematic method of the attacks left little room for survival. Now let's explore the conjectures that have formed around this riddle. After the murder stopped, suspicion loomed over 2 individuals, James Phillips and Nathan Elgin. Phillips was later absolved of the accusations. Nathan Elgin, however, surfaced as a possible suspect posthumously. A cook by vocation, Elgin was gunned down by law enforcement in February 1886 during a burglary. His physical traits and the closeness of his workplace to the crime scenes drew attention, yet no definitive evidence ever connected him to the murders. Other theories point to the possibility that the killer could have been a roving worker, exploiting the cover of night and the city's budding infrastructure. Some even suggest that the murderer may have escaped to London, transforming into the notorious Jack the Ripper. Regardless of these numerous theories, the Servant Girl Annihilator's true identity and motives remain an enduring enigma, as elusive as the shadows in which he lurked. Theories are plentiful, however. Definitive answers remain scant. In the annals of true crime, the Servant Girl Annihilator continues to be a chilling mystery, his identity and motives as elusive as ever. Though the dread ceased as abruptly as it commenced, the haunting shadow of the Servant Girl Annihilator refuses to fade. The impact of this phantom's reign was profound, leaving a lasting imprint on both the city of Austin, Texas, and the world. This specter's reign of terror, his questions left unanswered, these elements continue to reverberate through history, influencing the collective psyche on a global scale. The enigmatic crimes of the Servant Girl Annihilator, veiled in the obscurity of the late 19th century, provided creative fuel for countless literary works and media adaptations. The unknown identity of this elusive predator has sparked the imaginations of authors, directors, and true crime aficionados alike. The Servant Girl. Annihilator's story has been reinterpreted and retold, his gruesome acts dissected and dramatized, in a perpetual quest to comprehend the psyche of a beast. Austin, once crippled by fear, has matured and transformed, yet the specter of the Annihilator lingers. His horrific spree has become an integral part of the city's narrative, a terrifying reminder of a time when dread prowled the streets under the veil of darkness. Yet the influence of the Servant Girl Annihilator extends beyond the boundaries of Austin. His crimes, his enigma, have seized the world's attention. The ongoing fascination with this unidentified serial killer is a testament to the enduring global obsession with the macabre, the unknown, and the inexplicable. In the end, the Servant Girl Annihilator may have vanished, but he is far from forgotten. his eerie legacy permanently carved into the annals of true crime.